Thank you, George. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Today marks an important step in the next phase of Football Australia and Australian football and our broader football family. The ambitions we naturally set are demanding, and the next few years will be equally demanding. But with those demands come real opportunities. Our responsibility as a board is to ensure the organisation understands the horizons, the opportunities and challenges that are present in them, and then to ensure that the organisation is well prepared and able to execute on its strategy and ambitions. Importantly, we're trying always to improve our consistency as an organisation, and that consistency matters from participants and volunteers all the way to the professional level. In that context, I'm pleased to announce Martin Kugeler as the Chief Executive Officer of Football Australia. Martin will commence on February 16th, and we welcome Martin to the Australian football family. Martin brings a rare balance of systems-level thinking, commercial and financial acumen, innovation, media insight, and, importantly, a profound and deep understanding and passion for football. That balance matters as Football Australia seeks to strengthen the capability, capacity, and capital it needs not only to deliver sustainably, but also to pursue any ambition it sets into the future. For us, sustainability is the floor, ambition is the ceiling. We are confident that Martin's domestic and international perspective will build and also complement the capabilities that already exist at Football Australia and across the Australian football ecosystem. He has been appointed to build on the foundations that have already been laid and to help not only Football Australia, but all of our stakeholders across our ecosystem thrive. Before I invite Martin to speak, I want to publicly acknowledge Heather Garriock, who has led Football Australia exceptionally for the last 8.5 months as interim CEO. Heather stepped away from the board to step up for the game. That matters. Heather and the team have not only held the fort for the last 9 months, they strengthened it. Heather, thank you for your leadership and for your service. The game and the organisation is grateful. In that spirit, I'm also pleased to confirm that Heather will take on the significant role of Executive Director of Football and Deputy CEO at Football Australia. This role includes end-to-end responsibility of the football pillar, from national teams, competitions, development, pathways, participation, and related international affairs. Accordingly, Heather remains a central part of Football Australia's leadership and Australian football leadership. Together, these appointments position Football Australia for the next 4-year cycle with major tournaments, opportunities that exist both on and off the field for us, and a commitment to development right across the game. They reflect the intent to build an institution that performs strongly, sustainably, and consistently, regardless of cycles, and that seeks to reinvest its strength back into the game more broadly. Martin, welcome. I now invite you to take the floor.
Right, thank you very much, and hello, very warm welcome also from my side. Thank you for joining us today. Football in Australia has a strong foundation for growth. Our national impact is massive. As you know, our sport is the largest participation sport in Australia, 1.9 million active participants and over 3,300 local clubs. And football is the world game. It unites people from every background and walk of life. In our multicultural Australian society, this is an enormous asset. We have exceptional national teams that continually make us proud. They perform at a truly global scale and unite not only the football community, but the entire nation. The Matildas are Australia's best and most loved team. They're real trailblazers for women's sport in Australia. And we have got an exciting AFC Asia Cup ahead of us, and they will take the momentum from the last FIFA World Cup on home soil into that tournament. The Socceroos have extended their phenomenal run, qualifying for the 6th time to the World Cup, consecutive time for the World Cup. With an exciting young team, they will showcase what Australian football stands for at the FIFA World Cup in the US, Mexico and Canada, taking on the world's best. And our youth national teams are enjoying great success, laying the foundation for the Matildas and Socceroos' continued future state. Maybe let me go off script for a second. I'm not sure how many of you watched the game last night of the under-23. I tried to prepare for today. What an exciting game. I think that game showcases what Australian football stands for, right? With all the adversities, fighting to the last minute, putting the effort in with heart, with physicality. So amazing. So 92nd minute, the equalizer, 98th minute, the winning goal. Unfortunately, Heather and Anta haven't warned me that in this role, my blood pressure will go even higher than when I was watching as a fan. So, congratulations to the team. I think we all wish them all the best for the next phase of the tournament. So, all right, now I'm back on script. Furthermore, Football Australia plays an important role in international football through our partnership with FIFA and the AFC. But we as a game are even more than that. At every level, from grassroots to national teams, football brings people and communities together for a healthy lifestyle, for connection, for enjoyment, for belonging, powered by a remarkable, passionate, dedicated players, referees, coaches, volunteers, and fans. I'm here to ensure all the critical parts of the game come together and grow and innovate football in Australia. We will grow capability and passion for football in Australia through professionalism, innovation, connection, and a high-performance, value-driven culture. I truly believe that football can reach new heights in Australia and be rightly proud of its place here and on the world stage. Our growth ambitions include growing the football community, players, coaches, officials, volunteers, growing competitions, pathways, and the success of high-performance teams. Growing our supporter and fan base, so more people watching more, but also the community engaging with the fantastic stories of our teams and our players. Then also growing our commercial outcomes, so we can reinvest in the game, into our people, into the talent, into innovation, and into infrastructure from grassroots to national teams. And we need to embark on a path of innovation. Innovation is in how we use new technologies across the entire organization, how we use modern communication channels to engage fans and the football community, and how we leverage the rich first-party data that Football Australia already has or can generate for the benefit of football. Innovation and professional structures will be absolutely key to growing football in Australia. Importantly, it also can only be truly successful if all stakeholders of the game are united and support each other through shared values, purpose, and cooperation, putting football first. I'm very much looking forward to working with our football family, our member federations, women's councils, clubs, players, coaches, officials, supporters, the PFA and the A-Leagues. Also collaborating with all levels of government, with our valued commercial partners, broadcaster, our sponsors, and last but definitely not least, our international federations, FIFA and the AFC. With unity, shared values, passion, drive for excellence, and a highly motivated winning team, we will take the game to new heights in Australia and internationally. To continue to drive that journey, I'm very pleased that Heather Garriock will take on the new leadership position of Executive Director of Football and Deputy CEO. In this role, Heather will lead the growth and success of football in Australia end to end, from grassroots to the national teams. Heather's credentials are very well known. Right? Professional player, midfielder, coach, successful sport administrator, long-term member of the board of Football Australia, and for the last 8 months, a very successful interim CEO of Football Australia. Heather, continuing as part of the Football Australia leadership team, will not only significantly strengthen the football expertise, will give football a strong voice within the organization, but also make my transition into the CEO role seamless. Now, I would like to hand over to Heather for a few words.
Thank you, Martin. You'd see very quickly that the synergy between me and Martin has been incredible. Since meeting Martin for the very first time, it was really important to me and us that we build a great team, both on and off the field. So I want to congratulate you, Martin. I can't wait to work with you. There's so much more we can do at Football Australia. To Enter and the board, thank you so much for your support, leadership, and now for the vision of Football Australia. It's been an honour and privilege to serve as the Interim CEO of Football Australia the past 8 months. When I started in the role, our priority was to strengthen the organisation and embed really strong foundations for the permanent CEO to come in. It was similar when I was a player. We always wanted to leave the jersey in a better place than we found it. I am so proud of the progress we have made over the past 8 months, and thank you to the team for the focus, discipline, and for continuing on. We've got another month to go until the 16th of February, pre-season. It's probably the longest pre-season of my life, to be honest. During the period of interim CEO, I'm very proud to say that we qualified directly under coach Tony Popovich for the World Cup. We also appointed one of the globe's best coaches, not women's coaches, best coaches, in Joe Montemuro to lead our Matildas to the Asian Cup and hopefully a win, Joe. We've strengthened governance and the organisation's financial position, focused on building open and transparent relationships for our partners and other key stakeholders, rolled out the emerging championships, and most recently, the Australian Championships. We've reformed Play Football, the registration system that we purely own, the only sport in the country that owns their registration system. People and culture, our governance, our finance and risk have been at the forefront of our minds. The talent development ecosystem that we embarked on almost 12 months ago when I was Football Development Committee Chair, we've now got the findings for that and we'll start to implement that, particularly in my new role. And lastly, and something I and we as a team are really proud of, is the corporate strategy. Is we will now have a roadmap from now until 2029 to be able to utilise as the roadmap. So thank you to the team for that. I now very much want to look forward to stepping into the new role as Executive Director of Football and Deputy CEO, with a strategic focus on the football pillar, which entails high performance, national teams, competitions, technical, and most importantly, our international relations related to my role. Like never before, I can't share my excitement. You've seen it since I've walked in the door. I cannot wait to work with Martin. From the moment I was a 5-year-old little girl playing my first ever game for Leppington Lions out in southwest Sydney and lacing up my boots, I fell in love with football. And today, I am so grateful to continue on at Football Australia and continue to be part of the team, strengthen the team, and work with you, Martin, and Enter and the board, and the rest of the football community. Thank you so much.
Questions. When I call in, if you just mind stating your name and your organisation outlet too, and if people online can just use the raised hand feature so we can just keep track of you and then come to you afterwards. So Vince.
Thanks. Martin, Vince Rigari, Sydney Morning Herald, congratulations.
Thank you.
Obviously your primary area of expertise or that you've been working in is media and broadcast strategy. Is that where some of the major opportunities that Angela was talking about before could present over the next 4 years? There seems to be a lot of football properties that rights deals will expire during at least the next 4 years. Are there opportunities there for Football Australia to try and combine some of those and maximise the impact for the whole of the game?
Yeah, thanks, Vince. So I think there are commercial opportunities across the board, right? And yes, you're right. Obviously, through my previous experience, it is in media and broadcast. But if you go back, it's broader than that. It's on the entire commercial side. So I believe that there are so many opportunities, but also a necessity to leverage those opportunities. Right? As I said, it's about growth and innovation, and there's no doubt if we want to achieve the ambition that we have to grow revenues in all areas, and that includes our commercial partners. That might be in the broadcast rights. That might be new revenue sources. So that will be very important, right? And I think, and to mention it, what is important for us is really building a commercial and a football excellence in the team. It has to go hand in hand, because without football excellence, without success of the national teams, without kind of the love that people then feel connected to the teams, the commercial success builds on that, right? So it does not start with it's jointly football and commercial side.
Tracy?
Tracy Holmes, Sports Ambassador Podcast. Congratulations on the role. Just tying into that, the commercial viability and success and growth would also have quite a bit to do with the A-Leagues and the domestic football environment. Coming from your background in broadcast, how are you going to try and link those things more to get the best for both sides and for the game in total, because that has been a bit of a problem in the past?
Yeah, look, so thank you, Tracy, first up. But there's no doubt that Football Australia and the A-Leagues have to work hand in hand, right? And it is for commercial benefit for both, but it is for fan engagement, right? The A-Leagues deliver the constant heartbeat of matches and content, while our national teams are obviously peaks during the year. So it is important from that side, but it is also very important for player development, right? If you want to become a professional player, and the A-League clubs at the moment lean heavily into the youth development, it's such an important part for then also our national teams to be successful. So there's no doubt that A-League and Football Australia, we have got a shared vision. We want to grow the game. We want the best of the game, and obviously also they've got a new CEO that just started, and we will work hand in hand to leverage the best opportunities.
Amanda.
Martin, congratulations. Amanda Shalala, ABC News. Just on that, looking specifically at the women's game, the PFA has called for the A-League women's to go fully professional in a year after the Asian Cup. What are your thoughts on how the women's game domestically specifically is going, and what role Football Australia can play in this piece to get them to a professional league?
Look, I believe PFA and we are aligned in seeing the opportunity in women's sport, right? There's a huge opportunity for women's football, and I share also the analysis that they've done is around the globe, countries invest more in women's football. You know? If you look at the recent Euros of women's Euros over there, the level of play was exceptional. The investment that happens over there is significant. And you also look at other sports codes in Australia, and they're also investing in women's sports. So from that perspective, completely aligned with APR, but also I think all football stakeholders the importance, but also the potential of the women's game, and we will work with all stakeholders in strengthening and building that in the future. It's so important.
Yasmin?
Yasmin Al-Wakal, SBS News. I'm curious, Martin, what's the extent of your commitment to the growth of Indigenous football in Australia?
Thank you for the question. So Indigenous football, and look, I see it as football is, I would say, the most integrative sport there is, right? There is, I talked about the multicultural sport. It's a world game, and what we want to facilitate and enable is that everybody loves to play the game. Everybody has got the chance to play the game and enjoy the game, either as players or as supporters or as volunteers or so. And look, and then Heather will know that better. There are initiatives in place to strengthen that part for Indigenous Australia as well.
Great. David?
David Weiner, Football 360, congratulations. You spoke about the opportunity coming into the new role, though. What do you think is the biggest challenge that you're going to face? And if we can throw a second question in as well, you spoke about being a lifelong football fan. It'd be just great to know about growing up in Germany, what kind of football experiences you've had that brought that passion on.
I start with the later one. That's probably the easier one to answer. So, look, I grew up with football. I was born in Hamburg, but then early on we moved to an area close to Schalke, Dortmund. All the football fans probably know that. But I've been a lifelong supporter and sufferer for Hamburg. I'm sure you all know it's a founding member of the Bundesliga. Then 8 years ago they went into the second league and they knocked on the door to go up in the first league for all 7 and always missed out. And now finally they're back in the first league, but more at the bottom end of the table. So look, I think we all as fans have to learn suffering. I definitely learned suffering with my team. I also looked for, okay, if I've got a team that mostly loses, who is a team that wins? So I'm a big fan of Barcelona. I love their playing style, introduced by Cruyff, and that they take it through basically all their teams. La Masia as a youth academy and how they blood talent into their team, and obviously also what the team represents in the Catalan culture. So big fan of that. So look, it's growing up as a boy in Germany, it's the major sport, right? You follow the players, you follow the players' stories. But then coming over to Australia, right? I think the stories of the Socceroos and the Matildas in particular are just exceptional, right? It's great to see and for families like ours to see how that is. So I'm very passionate about this sport and what it can do. So now the more difficult part of your question, challenge. Look, let me answer the question slightly different. So I think about my first 100-day program, right? And my first 100 days will be building connections and relationships with the Football Australia team that is there, but also then with all stakeholders. As I mentioned in my statement, it's so important that all stakeholders work united to basically our common goal is to grow the game, to make the game better, more accessible for everyone. So the first 100 days, an important part is engaging with all the stakeholders and see how can we work best together, or also where might be some differences in opinion and work through that, but ultimately then unite under vision and a purpose. The second one will then be obviously an in-depth look at the current organization, and that brings me to your question on the challenges, right? And that will show what the opportunities are, what challenges or gaps are, what the risks are, and then to identify what are the priorities for afterwards, right? So that will be part of the 100 days, and then obviously also will be exciting tournaments ahead, right? How can we support Joe and the team best for the Asia Cup? How we can support Tony and the team best for the preparation of the World Cup to really have successful campaigns that excites us all and makes us proud all.
George?
George Clark, AAB. Congratulations, Martin, and to you, Heather. Thanks, I'll just come to you first.
Yeah, sure.
Executive Director of Football, why did the board feel the need for that role? Can you talk us through the KPIs of that, I guess the scope of that job, how it differs from Chief Football Officer you had before,
Yeah.
and I guess how many other candidates did you sit down with before settling on Heather?
Yeah, thank you, George. It's a significant role, a completely new role. No role previously has had an end-to-end responsibility of football in terms of competitions, national teams, so forth. Previous roles have typically been something more common to focus on development, participation, and so forth. This is a complete delivery, end-to-end, including related international affairs. So it's the reason why, and by the way, this is something that Martin and Heather have been discussing over the course of the last month, and I think it relates and refers precisely to what Martin mentioned before about we need to be an organisation that focuses on both commercial excellence and football excellence. As far as Heather goes, Martin as well mentioned the very unique tangibles that she brings in terms of being a former great Matilda or a great Matilda, someone who has coaching experience and credentials, has even refereed, has been a board member, has been a CEO of a different sport, and also interim CEO in our sport, which I think is a great reflection on, it was something we were proud of and still proud that we have, very strong women in leadership and influencing and shaping the direction of football in Australia. But more than the tangibles, the intangibles, I mean, there's no obstacle insurmountable to Heather. Anyone who knows Heather is just the energy, the enthusiasm, the positivity that she brings to an organisation. The last 9 months have been demanding as an organisation, but mainly because of the demands that we've put on ourselves. And I mentioned before, very easy for an interim CEO to go through the motions. It's a very difficult role. You can't really commit the organisation to major decisions, or so they say. People will typically not commit to you, as we see in interim coach appointments. That was not the case the last 9 months. They, regardless of what was going to happen next, the selfless attitude of Heather and the rest of the team to lay the foundations necessary that our organisation needs and the game needs to really use it as a launch pad for what we're about to do in the next few years is a credit to Heather and the rest of the team.
So, no pressure, Heather, but I guess can you maybe talk through people always talk about issues in Australian football, where you see the biggest challenges in the ecosystem, and I guess stuff like, do you think Australian teams should have a style of play like Martin talked about, the Dutch and whatever?
Yeah, Barcelona.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't say that it's necessarily the style that Joe and Tony have to play, right? Just to clarify, I like the style, but...
But do you have a vision on what an Australian team should look like, and I guess Australian football in general, from under sixes to NPL, A-League, whatever it is?
Yeah, there is an Australian way we already play like. We saw that last night with our Olyroos, which was incredible. I'm still smiling. You think I'm smiling for this role, but it's also for the Olyroos. I love winning. It's ingrained. But I think the ability of this role is to be able to focus. If I can be honest, that I actually haven't been able to, as interim CEO, to focus on the strategic direction of football and be able to work with our head of national teams and to bring football together within the organisation. So technical is working with national teams and also competitions, because they're vitally important, because we can almost critique our regulations for talent development pathways, and this is where the talent development ecosystem audit comes in. We've consulted over 300 people. So yes, I do think we need a whole of football strategic direction. We are going to have one, but it's not going to come in the next couple of months, because we need to focus on the business. We've got Asia Cup as well. But the strategic side of football as a business is really, really key, and that's what I observed as interim CEO that we were lacking, and that's why I am so excited that there is someone of Martin's calibre to come in and work as the leader of the organisation, but also for me to be able to report to somebody like that. But I know what his philosophy is. It's about everyone working as a team collectively, and I think you'll see an Australian style of football and a strategic direction in terms of whole of football direction, whether it be from grassroots to national teams, and that's what I'm really excited about. But it'll be in consultation with our stakeholders, most importantly.
I might go to some questions online, I'll come back in. So Joey, are you online?
Yes, I am. Congratulations on your appointment, Martin. Thanks for taking the time. I guess first, just follow up to some of those questions for Georgia. I'll put Joey Lynch, freelance. Follow up for some questions, Georgia's questions there. Heather, as has been mentioned, it's a big year coming up for national teams. Soccer is playing at the World Cup, and I guess Tony Popovic's contract ends after that World Cup. Could you give us an insight into how, in your new role, that will fit in that sort of decision-making process and chain of command? You've obviously got Martin coming in, Trevor's there, Gary's there. Just what will that look like when you're making these decisions about coaches and the national teams?
Yeah, our coaches, of course, especially in our national teams. Our national teams are the enablers. The pedigree of Tony Popovic, I don't need to speak about his pedigree. His performance on the field in terms of leading the Socceroos has been incredible. To do what he's done in the last 12 months for the Socceroos. Wow, I'm so excited. I'm sure the Australian public is as excited for the World Cup. In terms of contract negotiations, Martin, we haven't spoken about that yet, have we?
No, we haven't.
But I can almost certainly say that it would be a discussion from the key people within the organisation, from myself to Martin to obviously the board needs to play a role as well, because that's important as well, particularly our national team coaches. And our football development committee. So we certainly want Tony to do well and the team to do well, and we fully believe in both our coaches, in Tony and Joe Montemuro for the Asian Cup.
We might go to...
Martin, you talked a lot about innovation in your remarks. I was wondering, having had a chance to observe this role, and you would have made the decision coming in, is there any area of Football Australia that you think is primed for innovation and primed to be innovated?
So obviously I've mostly a view from the outside with some insights from over the last month talking to Heather. Right? So there's definitely opportunities within, let's say, the organization and the administration to think about efficient processes, technologies that can enable those efficient processes. But it's also from my experience becoming kind of a member of Football Australia during the process, a lot that can be kind of enhanced and innovated in that engagement with the fans. But and there are plenty of things, innovation also for the sports area, right? What can I do in terms of supporting coaches, or especially kind of a program, kind of a national, where you have to monitor people that are playing wherever they're playing and developing, but supporting kind of the teams as well. So it's really looking at all those areas and obviously with everyone, all the stakeholders involved, what is fit for purpose. So we're also not using new technologies just for the sake of using new technologies. They have to add real value to the organization and enable us to the growth, as I explained.
Marco, who's online.
G'day Martin, well done on the job. Just in terms of the A-League, I'm not sure if this was asked before, so I couldn't really hear what's named question, but In terms of the unbundling a few years ago, I think it's fair to say that the A-League men's and women's haven't really prospered since then, and just in the past couple of years. In your new role, do you think that you and the FA should take a major lead in actually helping both those competitions and sort of helping run it with the APL again?
Thank you, Marco. I think it's too early to answer that question. Basically, is reiterating what I said earlier. Right? It's A-Leagues and Football Australia have to work hand in hand. There's a new management at the A-Leagues, and I'm really looking forward to engage with the team to think about how we jointly can work together. What are the things where we can cooperate closer, and obviously also. Again, looking at the report that came out yesterday from the players, and looking generally on those improvement opportunities, and I'm sure there are plenty that we can do together.
And we'll come back in.
And also, sorry, just one more. With your previous history with TV, in terms of future broadcast deals, what do you think you can bring in terms of getting better deals for the FA?
I think first I want to acknowledge the current broadcast partner, right? 10 and Paramount Plus are leaning in. Who was not as crazy as I was watching the game last night, could get up this morning and watch the highlights or the minis. So they're a great supporter of the game, and that is very important to acknowledge. But at the same time, we're obviously very confident about the value of the product, the excitement that we can create, particularly with the national teams. Before I go on, it's also obviously SBS. Sorry to not mentioning SBS earlier, but SBS has played a great role in the Australian Championship and bringing that to life, and the success that the first year of the Australian Championship had. So I'm very confident. We are very confident about the value that it has. The rights are not up for a number of years. But obviously, we want to create momentum in the upcoming tournaments, in the Asian Cup and the World Cup, next year's Asia Cup of the men and the World Cup of the women, and drive forward that momentum, drive forward the passion and more fans that I was talking about, and then that will also come with attractive broadcast deals for our organisation.
And just to keep the time, we'll do a couple more follow-ups. Vince, George and Amanda.
I'm wondering how cheeky I can be and whether I can squeeze in, so I'm just going to do it. Sorry. One's for Heather. Can you just clarify, is your new role, does that effectively absorb what would be a technical director's role, or will there be one working under you? And do you think there's a risk that your role is actually possibly too broad, because you've got a lot of things on your plate by the sounds of it? And then, Martin, the question for you was, you would have analysed the A-League from afar in a previous life at Stan, looked at it as a product. I'm just wondering what your personal view is on why you think the A-League hasn't lived up to what looks like a pretty big potential.
You go first.
Vince, I'm really glad that I'm prepared for this, of course. My role is strategic, which is we've never had from a football perspective, to oversee the strategic pillar with competitions, national teams and the technical side of football, working collectively together and not in silos. And so therefore, yes, I'll have a head of women's and a head of men's, which is vitally important for the system and vitally important for the growth, and for us to know that our men's and women's development pathways are very different. And it's for the first time that we'll have a head of women's that will be focused on the technical development of head of women's and not have a dual role. So I'm really excited for that. Trevor Morgan is currently playing that role at the moment and has contributed so much, and we know his success and his pedigree as well at last year's World Cup. So I'm really excited for what's to come, and the football community should be as well.
All right, to your question on the A-Leagues and the value of the A-Leagues. So, as I talked through earlier, the A-Leagues are really a very important component to really the continuous fan engagement over the year, right? Football Australia and the national teams are just moments in time. We need to engage with the fans over the year and over the season, and that's where the A-League plays. Not sure if everyone shares my view, but the quality of the players is exciting, right? And the opportunity for young players and for fans to see young players emerge, get on the radar, potentially get a run with the Socceroos is exciting, and that connection, as I mentioned earlier, will be hugely important. But you're right, it hasn't translated in the following, either attendance in the stadium or also viewership on TV that the potential is, and I'm sure there are so many different reasons, right? There's the experience in the stadium. There is are people kind of disconnecting, but look, ultimately, I think we all here in the room are playing a role, right? We obviously have to put the right pieces in play, but that's where also media and journalists like yourselves come in, and I know all your passion for the game, right? How do we get the game in general, the national teams, but also the A-League more in front of people, more in front of talking about, because it's worth talking about, right? But I look at publications, right, like yours and others, and you see other sports codes are dominating there. So we have to bring those fantastic stories about players, etc., in the forefront, and then I think also the supporters, viewers, audience will follow. But it's a job that obviously is firstly A-Leagues and us, but as I said, that it brings everyone in who has got a passion for the sport.
This is a broad one for all of you, but last year FA put an EOI forward for the 2031 Men's Asian Cup. Is that going to be put into a formal bid? And I guess just a second one on that. Heather, you spoke at the AGM last year about right-sizing the business. Is FA tracking, is it reducing its loss to next year? What's the balance sheet going to look like at the end of the year?
Yeah, I mean, I can take both those. Thank you, George. I'll deal with the first question first. Yes, an expression of interest was submitted for 2031, and this follows our ambition and aspiration to continue wanting to host tournaments. In fact, in the most recent engagement that we've had with both FIFA and AFC late last year, Heather and I expressed a desire for Football Australia and Australian football to host more tournaments at every level. And the reason for that is obviously it engages our entire football family with our national teams and the game, but it also gives us a window of opportunity to engage government, to partner with them to help them deliver on their social impact and community causes, and commercial partners, and a bit of an engagement globally as well in terms of diplomacy for the sport in the country. In relation to your second question, over the course of the last 9 months, a lot of attention and focus has been placed on making the organisation sustainable. But sustainability is not just about financial sustainability, it's about being able to sustainably deliver the services and support we need to deliver at a high level. So in terms of right-sizing, I think too many times people infer that to mean a reduction. The way I would see it is more of a football team's formation and a coach saying, you know what, right now, given the quite demanding quarter one, quarter two we have in this year and next with Asian Cup, Women's Asian Cup that we're hosting, Men's World Cup, and then it reciprocates the other way next year. The leadership from the executive and management need to be able to have that flexibility to ensure that in the areas that we need attention, focus, and resource and capability, they're able to do that. So that'll be an ongoing thing. I think any organisation that wants to constantly be relevant has to have that level of adaptability and flexibility in terms of the environment it operates in.
Amanda?
This is for Heather, more in your capacity as interim CEO. Just keen for Football Australia's reaction to what's happened with the Mariners' ownership situation this week, and how concerning is it to see another A-League club going through this?
You know that I'm a Central Coast local, don't you? It's obviously difficult in terms of seeing a licence given back. However, the relationship that I formed with Stephen Conroy as the chair, and Steve that has come in as his first baptism of fire going up to the Central Coast, means that we want owners in football in Australia to be strong, so that way our leagues are strong. And so therefore it goes back to the APL, and Football Australia will always support the APL. But most importantly, this is a foundation club. So Football Australia will do what it can to support the APL and support other clubs going forward within our capacity, particularly in that club licensing point of view. So it is really important for me to note that the A-Leagues are only going to be as strong as the owners and the leaders that lead.
Now, final question back online with Joey.
Thank you very much, George. Question for Martin. Martin, you talked about following the ups and downs of Hamburg. Hope you won't hold that against St. Pauli's, Connor Metcalf and Jackson Irvine. But obviously, Hamburg up and down the pyramid. We've seen Football Australia recently introduced the Australian Championship second tier. I guess, as a concept, do you feel the concept of promotion and relegation is something that Australian football should be walking towards?
It's a very interesting question. So let me start with the beginning, St. Pauli. I'm probably one of the rare Hamburg supporter that also likes St. Pauli because of their history, because of their kind of quirky nature that they have. It's an incredible club and also an incredible passionate fan base. So having two brilliant Australian players over in that club, it's great. So look, obviously I grew up with relegation, and it adds to the back end of the season a lot to the attractiveness of the competition, right? And but there are also reasons why you don't do it, right? And we have seen over in Europe or in Germany very traditional clubs who didn't maintain in the first league and then couldn't kind of survive and delivering the commercial outcome that they needed to be a sustainable club. So it comes also with disadvantages, right? And where Australia is at the moment. Not to be honest that I have thought about this a lot, and I probably should talk to Heather a lot more about this. But I think it's not unusual, right? If you also look at other sports codes, that you have got this group of teams in your first league, and what I would say though, looking at the league over the years, but also this year again, how close the teams are, right? It's exciting, the point difference, but also that basically every team can beat any team in the league, and that's ultimately what you want: close games, tight tables, but also not a serial winner every year. So we don't want a Bayern Munich necessarily here in Australia.